Disney's direct-to-DVD era was an embarrassment. It was a time when rather than taking bold creative risks, they just played it safe and churned out a mountain of rushed, cheaply made sequels that were just there to cash in on kids' love for the Disney Renaissance and the parents who could afford it. Most of these movies were terrible. A lot of them were just pilots for TV shows that would never come out. Some of them had decent ideas, but it was almost always so-so execution. That said, I pretty much have always had a soft spot for them since they pretty much defined my childhood. They weren't good, but to me, it's just something that has faded away into the deep recesses of my mind. The only time it ever pops up, it's there for me to laugh at it, as yeah, it was a weird thing how they made Christmas Beauty and the Beast, and I am just thankful that Disney would never do something this stupid ever. Here we go again. The story behind Moana 2 might be the most embarrassing stunt Disney has ever pulled, minus what recently happened with Moon Girl. Disney really created a fully animated series to continue the story Moana on Disney+, only for the mouse to lose over $500 million in 2023 as a result of making bad movies. So they panicked and decided to repackage that show into a feature film, giving the creative team behind it very little time to take what was probably going to be an 8-episode TV show and cram it into like an hour and a half. And unfortunately, based on how this monument to corporate greed and insecurity broke pre-sale records, Disney looks like they're on track to getting away with it, which is just so frustrating, as it means they'll be even more liable to pull stunts like this in the future, while also seeing that they can spend less money, overwork their animators even more, and still make bank. Yeah, this is just a nightmare scenario for me, even when you don't throw in how the original movie was only made 8 years ago, and it's already getting a live-action remake. Probably because The Rock only has a few more years of being buff, and they want to reuse him. But that's just the behind-the-scenes drama. What about the movie itself? Did the team behind the screen pull off a miracle and make it work in spite of everything being stacked against them? Well, no. Not really. Though to be fair, it could have been a lot worse, but this might be one of the most underwhelming experiences I've had with a Disney film in a while. I think everyone who worked on this thing did the best they could given the circumstances, and the fact that it flows as well as it does is honestly amazing. But overall, I don't think I'll ever be compelled to watch this movie again, and that boils down to a couple reasons. Firstly, this movie is mostly a retread of the original. It essentially follows all the same story beats. Moana is given a mission, high-seas shenanigans, a Maui side quest, and a finale that involves avoiding a villain that's basically just a force of nature. The only time this movie surprised me is when it did something that kinda pissed me off from just the sheer missed opportunity of it all. As yeah, the Tamatoa stand-in, RIP. This film does exactly what you've seen before, but never as well. However, to be nice to this movie, I wouldn't say that I was ever bored watching it. Like, I wasn't having a great time, but as a way to kill 100 minutes, there are worse experiences. But this movie never lives up to its own potential, with a supporting cast that, while not annoying, kinda just exist. I like them well enough, but I can't name a single one. The zany shipwright was my fave, and the old dude did get a couple chuckles out of me, but that's kind of it. It's clear that they were meant to play bigger roles in the show, but that all got cut down for time, kinda like this movie's main villain. Yeah, that's right, Nalo, the antagonist, isn't in the fucking movie. Like, this is honestly the most annoying part of this whole film for me, as this entire movie hinges on this vague curse about a vague villain who wants to keep the people separate for such vague reasons that are never really explained. Like, it says he wants to keep them separate because that'll make him more powerful, but then we never expand upon that. He is always mentioned, but never seen, with his only supposed appearance being just a cloud with no real face or lines. This thing might as well just be the curse, as it's not a real person. It's crazy how the original movie was able to have an actually intimidating presence in Tekka, as while it was able to be a force of nature, it being a person rather than just an angry fart who shoots lightning allowed us to actually care about it and actually feel that intimidation. But instead, we just have nothing, and while we hint that Nalo is gonna be the villain in like a future film, I am not holding my breath for it. Well, I think the thing that truly makes this annoying as could have just had Mataangi as the main villain of this film. As yeah, she's actually pretty cool. She could just be the lieutenant, set up the bigger bad, but no. In fact, she's not even a villain.
So that was a fucking lie.
So this is a spoiler I'm just gonna throw out there, as it's better you know now versus hoping she sticks around. Motonagi is not the villain of this story. In fact, she is not even an antagonist. She's a misdirect whose villain song turns out to be just a sinister pep talk. And frankly, this is such a waste given Nalo's non-existence. Motonagi is easily the star of this film, dripping in classic Disney camp. She could have easily stolen the show if she was given a bigger role. This could have been Mother Gothel or Ursula levels of fun, but instead she's just hidden away, seems sinister, then she's not, and she just serves the narrative role of being just a lackluster Tamatoa stand-in, which I'm fine with since I associate him more with Schaefer Wilson than anything else at this point. Motonagi, though, getting relegated to just a one-off is a crime. Get Lost is like the one song from this movie I'll re-listen to, as the rest are just superfluous. Though take that with a grain of salt, as I don't have a great track record judging Disney music. Personally, I kind of wrote off Encanto as just okay, only for it to blow the fuck up. However, this time, I'm pretty confident, as most of the songs just work, with beats that are just catchy enough, but very rarely did they ever blow me away. In fact, I will always remember this. They do a reprise of We Know the Way towards the end of the film, and it immediately struck me at just how much better it is than everything else I had heard. There isn't a bad singing performance besides Rock, who he's not a singer, so that makes sense. But despite having world-class talent, it always just feels like they go for good enough. Moana's voice actress is doing her best to carry this movie, but the material she's given is just passable. And given how late into recording she was, like she only finished up in September, I'm pretty sure they were rushing her as much as anyone else, without resulting in a musical that fails to recapture the grandeur of the original. Sadly though, while the villain issues are like the most annoying part of the movie for me, I think Moana herself might be the most disappointing, as they really don't give her much to do. The beginning of the film is probably one of the biggest issues with this, as it is the one that is most sloppily cut together. As you can tell, there are moments where something was in between these cuts and it was removed to speed things up. It'll look like we're doing a big joke of Moana sliding down a hill only for us to smash cut to the end and be like, oh, something happened that we didn't see. And that's supposed to be the laugh instead of the slapstick that got removed. Or probably the worst example of this is like the grandma comes back in the middle of a musical number. Reunion is just weirdly brief and we just cut to the speech at the end where she's like, okay, Moana, this is what you need to do. And this is a serious issue of pacing, but this also really hurts Moana's motivations. It leaves Moana in this weird place where she just spends the entire film being told what to do. Moana's desire in this film to reunite her people is undercut by how the story basically just gives her a mandate to do exactly that. Her relationship with her little sister is cute, but we don't spend enough time for us to really grow to care. And the thing that triggers the third act breakdown is the narrative equivalent of Moana stubbing her toe. It's really unearned and really underwhelming given what happens and how quickly she's brought out of it. With all this making it really obvious how these things were supposed to be in a TV show, not a movie, as there's just not enough time to care or develop any of these characters. Disney has always had a problem with its main female leads where they'll often feel more like role models rather than characters, but I think Moana really suffers from it here, as I really don't remember being this much of a thing in the first. At least then, her drive to save her island versus the vague nothing and peer pressure they replace it with just doesn't hit the same. Like, they keep saying if Moana doesn't break the curse, it'll end their story, and therefore feels weirdly impersonal in spite of the implications. If Nala was going to destroy the island with a storm, yeah, maybe we'd have a little more impetus to get the move on, but instead we meander or rush Moana accepting this quest, and while the story gives her some good heroic moments, it still always falls short of making her compelling. Overall, Moana 2 is whatever. It's not the worst thing in the world and clearly a victim of Disney's greed. But when viewed on its own, it's still a lackluster experience. Good for distracting kids, but not much else. The few decent ideas or characters never escape the blandness of everything else, making this truly the direct-to-DVD sequel I have always dreaded coming back. There's just enough budget here that casuals will notice how it doesn't really surpass the original in terms of visuals, but there are worse things in the world, but there are definitely better things too. If I were to summarize this movie in a line, I'd steal this one title from Polygon. Moana 2 adds one good song to the Disney canon, but not much else. Honestly, if y'all want an actually good sea villain with killer music, I would highly recommend checking out Epic the Musical. It's a musical retelling of the Odyssey, and I have been obsessed with it all year, like to a worrying degree. It's all on YouTube, you guys should definitely go check it out, and if you're just a little curious and unsure, check out Annie Flamma or Neil Illustrator's animatics of Ruthlessness. It's my favorite song out of the series, and probably the best villain song I have heard in years. And no, I do not say that lightly.